Hi everybody, I'm Shannon Estep. I'm an Instructional Technology Coordinator and lecturer at Northern Kentucky University. Today we are going to talk about large language models and what is this idea of prompting. What can it do for us? What do we need to know about it? And how can it benefit us in getting the results back in what we're looking for? So I am going to head us over to a presentation that I'm actually also going to link in the description box below so that you can get to this presentation and take a look at this and follow along. And we will dive right into large language models and prompting. So here we are at the presentation I'm using for this, and let's move forward and talk a little bit about what is this idea of large language models. Okay, so here we are on a screen that says large language models, and you can see there are 4 tools here. Now, often when people talk about artificial intelligence, the first thing that is brought up is the tool ChatGPT, and it absolutely is artificial intelligence, but more specifically, it's a part of a group of tools called large language models, and they are trained on a large amount of data, and they will give us back information based on prompts that we have. So I have 4 large language models here. Now this isn't an exhaustive list, but these are the 4 that I think come up the most, and it is the 4 that I use on a regular basis, and it is a good starting place for getting your feet wet on using a large language model and learning how to prompt and get back information that's useful. So we'll start up at the top here, ChatGPT. So this is the OG, this is the original. This is where everything exploded into the world of chatbots back in November of 22. And the company that makes ChatGPT is called OpenAI. And this is again, the starting place of where people started playing around with this idea. We are now on version 4.0, and O stands for Omni, and that's the free version. And actually, after using it for a period of time during the day, after a certain amount of prompts you've given it, it'll switch over to 4.0 Mini, which is kind of a scaled down version of it. If you're on a pro version, you are on a different version than this. But for this example and for this conversation, we're just going to talk about the free versions. So ChatGPT is a good place to start. It gives good information. As always, with anything with artificial intelligence, you have to be careful of the term is hallucinations when it gives you information back, that it is factual and accurate. All of these you need to fact check against that, but some of them have built-in tools to do that, and I'll mention those as we go along. Gemini, I'm going to go counterclockwise here. Gemini is Google's version of the large language model. Now, it was trained differently than the ChatGPT model was. So as you play around with them and you put in the same prompt to each of them, you're going to probably see different information, or rather different variations of the information. So Gemini has its own unique flavor of doing it. It'll give you obviously a spot for prompts. It also has a couple of interesting things in it where you can click a Google it button when you get information back from Gemini, and it will fact check itself against Googling every fact that it gave you and giving you a scale on whether it was seen on Google and the fact checks out and you can actually check that source, or if it found a statement that didn't actually connect to anything that it found on Google. It also has something neat where it gives you different drafts of its response, so you can pick from multiple drafts that it gives you to see what would best work for you. So Gemini, for that one, you do need a Google account to log in, and then you can get started using that. Coming down to the bottom here, Copilot. This is Microsoft's version of a large language model, and it also has its own different flavor of how it does things. One thing I really like about Copilot is as you prompt it, it will cite all of its sources as clickable links by default, and you can go in and fact check it against what it told you. So I really like that about it. And it is, again, Microsoft's version. Claude is over on the right. Perhaps you've not heard of Claude before. It's by a company named Anthropic. The free version is 3.5 Sonnet. One thing it does uniquely is as you prompt it, if it has something that would be suitable to be an exported object like a Word document or a game that it created. It's created in something called an artifact, and it opens in a separate window, which makes it really easy to copy or export out into another tool that you could then do something with it. You can also directly share some of those artifacts. For example, if you created a flashcard game using Claude, then you could actually choose to publish it and then make it available for anybody to use. So Claude is very creative, and I've used it for things like create me a start of a class icebreaker or activity. So they're all four worth checking out. And depending on what your needs are, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot can also create images for you. So that is what large language models are. I'd encourage you to check them out. I do have some tutorial videos on these. I will link the ones that I have in the description box of this video, so you can take a look at those as well. So let's move on. While we talk about using these large language models, what do we need to keep in mind when we create our prompts? So this slide is all about things you might want to keep in mind when you are developing a prompt. And a prompt is basically a question or an action that you are giving a large language model to produce something for you. So in its simplest form, you might say a prompt is a request. So I might say something like, create me a rubric. Okay, that is a request, but I've given it really no context in terms of what it is I'm looking for. And these tips, again, not an exhaustive list, but these tips will help you to frame your prompt maybe a little more specifically, so you're getting back a bit more of what you're looking for. So here are 6 tips on creating a good prompt. You can assign it a role. You are, for this example, a 3rd grade teacher or a high school science teacher or a marketing director or an instructional designer or a student looking for whatever. If you allow the chatbot to understand the context of what you are assigning it in terms of the role, it will better give you a response back. Be specific and provide context. So for this example, I have this needs to be 20 minutes in length. It needs to align to standards. This needs to be easy to implement. Perhaps you're giving it who your customer is, what your audience looks like, those kinds of things. Give it the context it needs in order to give you back something functional. You can also specify the output format. So I want this in a table. I want this in a bulleted list. This will, and if you don't care, you don't have to put those in there. But if you're looking for something very specific, tell it what you want the format output to look like. You can assign it a tone. I want this to be friendly. I want this to be approachable. I want this to be casual or professional or formal, or in the tone of a 6th grade student, or in the tone of, whatever. The tone will allow it to write back to you in a way that would fit what tone you're looking for. Control the output length. If you care about this, maybe you need this to be a certain length, like a number of words, or I need this to be 2 paragraphs, or often I will tell it, I need you to give me 5 ideas, or 3 strong statements, something like that. So you can control the output length. And lastly, include examples to help clarify. So if there are examples that you already have, you can provide that. So this can look like what the example here says is, I'm looking for a short and catchy slogan like just do it. You can also, for most of these large language models, you can actually attach and upload documents or PDFs. So if you have an example that you've created that you want it to match the tone of this, or say, for example, you have an assignment, I want a rubric for this assignment, you can actually upload that to give it more examples and to help you get back what you're looking for. So these are, again, just a few tips for prompting that might be helpful while you are framing those prompts as you interact with a large language model. Lastly, on this last slide, I have a few resources, and you guys will have a link to this presentation so you can get to all of these within this, so you can take a look. The 5 I have at the top are just some prompt libraries that I have come across that might help you in framing your prompts so that you can get just what you're looking for. So those are just 5 resources. But what I do want to demonstrate for you is a tool inside of ChatGPT that will allow us to actually help us craft our prompts. So I'm going to open up ChatGPT now and show you what I mean here and how this might help you to write your own prompts in a really effective way. Okay, here we are within ChatGPT, and there will be another tutorial all on getting around ChatGPT. So look for that in the description box as I create it. But I wanted to point us to an area over here on the left where it says Explore GPTs. Now, GPTs are custom built, and I'm going to use the term apps, that people have built to focus prompting in a specific area. So for example, I'll go ahead and click on here and show you what some of these custom prompts look like. So here's one as an image generator. Here's one that helps you to focus your writing. Here's some on productivity, some for education specifically. Around the Summer Olympics, there was a GPT specifically to allow you to see when your favorite athletes were going to be on TV again. So custom GPTs can be created to allow you to play games or to ask questions specifically on a specific topic. There are custom GPTs that are set up to help you to create strong prompts. And you can see over here on the left, I have 2 of them that I have pulled out, that I have used. So let's take a look at one of these. And to search for them on your own GPT store, for lack of a better word, you're going to search right inside of here for either one of those. Okay, so for this example, I'm going to use the prompt engineer. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see now I'm inside of this little tool called prompt engineer, and you can see it here too. Now I'm still within ChatGPT, but I'm using this custom GPT. So I'm going to say, I need to create a good prompt to get a lesson plan for 5th grade science. Now I'm giving it some context here, but I think we can do better. Okay, so you can see here it's writing a prompt for me, and it is telling me, here's an example of an effective prompt you can use to guide the language model. So it gave me a much better prompt here, and it's telling me why this prompt is good. So just to try it, let's go ahead and take this prompt and let's ask ChatGPT using this prompt. All right, now while it's thinking about that, I will tell you that while I use these GPTs, the answer on a good prompt comes up differently each time. So that's the thing about artificial intelligence. You won't get the same information probably twice in a row. It really just depends on what it's pulling from. So I am giving it this prompt, but even this prompt, if I prompted that exact same thing, even inside the GPT, asking it for what I needed, it would probably give me something different. So we can see here what it's giving me back. This is pretty good. It's still writing. It's giving me all of the things I'm asking for. Lesson plan, learning objectives, materials needed, an introduction, key vocabulary, hands-on activity, a class discussion. It's giving me an assessment. It's giving me some further suggestions and homework. So the bottom line is, the better your prompts are, the more detailed and useful your information back from the large language model will be. There are lots of ways to give good prompts. This is just one example here of using a GPT. So we'll head back to the presentation and just finish up here. Okay, again, so to recap, these were some prompting resources as well as a brief introduction into the ChatGPTs that are there to help you to create effective prompts. So thank you for joining me for this video on large language models and prompting. Here's my contact information if you'd like to connect. I'd love to hear from you, and I hope this was helpful as you move forward using artificial intelligence.